Imagine being handcuffed to a buoy in the middle of the ocean, the waves crashing, the salt water burning your throat as you cry for help. The night sky above you is endless, and the only thing you hear is the motor of the police boat fading into the distance. The man who swore to protect you. The cop just left you to die, but what he didn't know was that a set of lights was approaching on the horizon, and with them, a secret he could never bury. Stay with me, because what happens next will leave you breathless. The water was cold, too cold, and every second it clawed at her skin, dragged her deeper into the terror of what had just happened. Her name was Monica Hayes, a 39-year-old mother of two, and until that night she had never truly understood what it meant to stare death in the face. But now she did, because she wasn't just in the water. She was tied to it, a thick, coarse rope cut into her wrists, the other end lashed tightly around a rusting buoy floating 3 miles off the coast. Each wave pulled her body against it, scraping her flesh, soaking her clothes until they clung heavy to her. The tide was rising, the current tugging, and her lungs burned from the salt spray. She tried to scream again, but the gag in her mouth muffled it, turning her voice into nothing more than a broken whimper. And even if she had screamed, who would hear her? The coastline was just a shadow in the distance. Behind her eyes, images replayed in savage detail. The face of the man who had done this to her. Officer Richard Callahan. The same officer the community was supposed to trust. The one who showed up to neighborhood barbecues. Who handed lollipops to kids after school. Who smiled for photos at church fundraisers. But tonight, behind closed doors, out on that dock, he had shown Monica his other face. A face of pure rage. Hours earlier, Monica had been at her sister's house, laughing over tea, folding laundry, planning for her youngest daughter's birthday. Her life wasn't perfect, but she carried herself with quiet pride, a woman who had fought through hardship before and always found her footing. But Callahan had been circling her for weeks, ever since she'd filed that complaint. She hadn't wanted to do it. She wasn't the type to go up against authority. But when she witnessed him roughing up a teenager outside the corner store, slamming the boy's head against the cruiser, smirking as if it was entertainment, something inside her snapped. She wrote it down. She signed her name. She filed a complaint. And just like that, she became his target. The patrol car that lingered outside her street. The headlights she saw in her rear-view mirror late at night. The quiet, taunting smile he gave her at the grocery store. It was supposed to be protection. Instead, it became surveillance. And on this night, it became something worse. She remembered it in flashes, like broken glass stabbing at her memory. The knock on the door just after 9. The false pretense of a follow-up. His voice firm, commanding, telling her to come with him for further questioning. She hesitated. She asked if she needed a lawyer. His smirk answered for him, and when she tried to shut the door, his hand was already inside. The next minutes blurred. A struggle in her hallway, the weight of his arm across her chest, the metallic snap of handcuffs, the gag, the desperate scream of her daughter from the living room. "Don't worry," he had hissed into Monica's ear as he dragged her out. "Mommy just needs some fresh air." By the time they reached the dock, the world was nothing but shadows and salt. He moved with chilling calmness, as if this had all been rehearsed. The patrol car parked just far enough from the pier to disappear in the dark. The trunk popped. The rope came out. Monica fought. God, she fought. Her wrists tore against the cuffs. Her legs kicked against the boards. But he was stronger, and worse. He was fueled by a kind of hatred she couldn't comprehend. He tied her to the buoy as if she were nothing more than a sack of trash to be dumped. He didn't rush. He didn't stumble. He hummed under his breath. When she tried to plead, he leaned close, his lips brushing her ear. "See, Monica," he whispered, You thought you could play hero, file your little papers, stir the pot. But out here, nobody files anything. Out here, you're just driftwood. He shoved her into the water, laughing as she thrashed. And then he was gone. His boots pounded the pier. The engine roared, and the night swallowed him whole. At first, panic consumed her. She clawed at the ropes until her skin split. She tried to keep her head above water, but the buoy rocked and tilted, dunking her under with each swell. The gag cut her tongue, choked her cries. But slowly, horribly, her body began to numb. The salt stung less. The burn in her chest dulled. The cold seeped into her bones, pulling her into a quiet surrender. Her mind drifted to her children, Maya and Jordan, who would wake to an empty bed, who would wonder why their mother never came home, to her sister, who had begged her to drop the complaint, who had warned her that men like Callahan didn't play fair, to the boy at the corner store, the one who had sparked it all. Had she saved him? Had it even mattered? Tears slid down her face, indistinguishable from the seawater. She whispered one last prayer into the dark. God, if you hear me, don't let me die like this. Time lost meaning. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. But then, through the fog of her fading vision, Monica saw it. A light, faint at first, like a star on the horizon, then brighter, bigger, cutting across the waves with power and speed. Her heart slammed against her chest. She blinked salt from her eyes, straining to see. It wasn't a fishing boat. It wasn't a yacht. It was massive, military, a steel giant rising from the sea, prow slicing water like thunder, and it was coming straight toward her. Monica's scream tore through the gag, raw and desperate. Her body convulsed, thrashing, begging the universe to notice her before it was too late, because this ship was close enough to save her, or close enough to crush her. The horn bellowed across the ocean, shaking the very air. Searchlights blazed. Shadows swept the waves. And in that split second between hope and terror, Monica's eyes locked on the silhouette of men on the deck, pointing, shouting, rushing. Had they seen her? Or was she about to vanish beneath the steel? The horn of the ship rattled the air like thunder. Searchlights swept across the water, slicing through the night, until there, they froze. On her, Monica Hayes, a 39-year-old mother too, bound to a buoy in the middle of a black ocean, her soaked body jerking against the ropes, her gag muffling her screams. For the first time in hours, she felt something stronger than the tide pulling her under. Hope! Contact! Starboard! The shout cracked across the deck of the USS Arlington, a Navy amphibious transport dock vessel cutting its patrol route along the coast. Commander Nathaniel Briggs stormed to the railing, binoculars pressed to his face. At first, he thought it was debris. Then the light steadied and his gut twisted. God Almighty, he muttered. That's a woman. Tied up. He spun. Launch a rescue boat. Now! Sirens wailed. Crew members sprinted, tossing ropes, lowering a rigid inflatable boat, RIB, into the churning waves. But time was not on Monica's side. The Arlington's engines churned the water into a violent froth. Each passing swell threatened to drag her beneath its steel belly. Move! Move! Briggs barked. The searchlights blinded her. The horn rattled her ribs. Her body was so numb she could barely kick anymore. She drifted in and out, flashes of her children's faces, her sister's warnings, Officer Richard Callahan's smirk as he shoved her into the sea. The gag choked her every breath. Salt water seeped into her lungs. Don't close your eyes. Don't you dare close your eyes. A spotlight swept across her again, and this time voices. Nam, hold on. We're coming. She couldn't form words, only muffled sobs, but her eyes widened with desperate recognition. She wasn't invisible anymore. She mattered. The Navy RIB crashed across the waves. 3 sailors inside. Petty Officer James Vega, Seaman First Class Angela Ruiz, and Chief Medic David Lowell. Their faces were taut with focus. "There!" Ruiz shouted, pointing at Monica's buoy. The closer they came, the worse they saw it. Her wrists bound, her face purple from exhaustion, her clothes dragging her down. Medic ready. Vega roared. Lowell gripped the kit. "The second she's free, she's mine." The RIB slammed against the buoy. Ruiz lunged, grabbing Monica's arm. "I've got her!" Her skin was icy, slick with blood. "Cut her free," Vega ordered. Ruiz's knife slashed the ropes. The gag came next. Monica's gasp for air tore into the night, like a newborn's first breath. Then her body collapsed into Ruiz's arms, limp, shaking. "She's going under. Pull her in." Together, they hauled her onto the RIB. Lowell dropped to his knees, pressing fingers to her pulse. "Faint. Give me a blanket. Oxygen ready." Monica coughed violently, salt water spraying. Her eyes fluttered open, just enough to see the sailors hovering over her. "Why, you found me," she croaked. "Yes, ma'am," Vega said firmly. "You're safe now." But even as he said it, his eyes darted toward the shoreline, and what he saw twisted his gut. On the distant dock, lit faintly by the Arlington spotlight, stood Officer Richard Callahan. His posture was unmistakable, arms raised, gun in hand. The bastard wasn't fleeing. He was watching her rescue, like a hunter watching his prey get stolen. And then, bang! A shot cracked across the water. The bullet splashed near the RIB, sending spray into the air. Monica screamed, ducking into Ruiz's arms. "He's firing at us!" Vega shouted. On the Arlington, alarms blared. Commander Briggs slammed a fist onto the railing. "Return fire?" an officer asked. "Negative." Briggs snapped. "We're not starting a war with local law enforcement, but don't let him touch my crew." Monica clutched Ruiz's sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "It's him. It's Callahan. He did this." Her words trailed off, swallowed by sobs. Lowell tightened the blanket around her shoulders, but his jaw clenched. Because if what she said was true, then this wasn't just a rescue. It was an attempted execution. And now they were all witnesses. On shore, Officer Callahan's hands shook as he reloaded. He hadn't expected the Navy. He hadn't expected Monica to still be breathing. This was supposed to be clean. Quiet. Now, too many eyes. Too many voices. But rage drowned out reason. "You're not leaving with her," he screamed across the waves, though no one could hear. "She's mine to finish." He fired again. This time the bullet clipped the buoy itself, the metal shrieking. On the RIB, Vega snarled. "That's it. We're moving full speed." The boat roared away from the buoy, spray drenching everyone. Monica clung to Ruiz, her whole body trembling. Behind them, Callahan's figure grew smaller, but his presence, it burned hotter than ever, because Monica knew he wasn't going to stop. The RIB slammed into the Arlington's loading bay. Hands pulled Monica onto the steel deck. Blankets, medics, oxygen tanks surrounded her. Commander Briggs crouched, eye level. "Ma'am, you're safe now. You're aboard a U.S. Navy vessel. No one's going to hurt you here." Monica's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but only one name escaped. "Callahan." Briggs' brow furrowed. "Who?" Her eyes darted wildly. "The cop? The one who put me there?" The deck went silent. A Navy medic muttered, "Jesus Christ." Briggs' jaw tightened. He'd heard whispers about corruption in small-town departments, but this This was an attempted murder by a sworn officer of the law, and they had living proof. Hours blurred. Monica lay in the infirmary, for pumping warmth into her veins, her body wrapped in bandages. But sleep refused her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Callahan's face, the smirk, the shove, the darkness swallowing her. When Briggs came in, she sat up with effort. "You need to tell me everything," he said softly. Her throat ached, but she forced the words. The complaint she filed, the stalking, the abduction, the gag, the buoy. Briggs listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, his voice was low, dangerous. "Ma'am, this isn't just assault. This is conspiracy. This is attempted murder by law enforcement." Monica's eyes watered. "Will anyone believe me?" Briggs leaned forward. "I do. And I've got an entire ship of sailors who saw it with their own eyes." For the first time, she exhaled a shuddering breath. But then, Briggs added words that chilled her anew. "Callahan knows you're alive. And men like him, they don't back down. They come back." As dawn crept across the horizon, word had already spread. Military intelligence officers were dispatched. Federal agencies were alerted. But on shore, Officer Richard Callahan wasn't hiding. He was planning. And when backup finally arrived at the dock, Callahan was gone, leaving behind nothing but spent shells and tire tracks leading back toward town. The predator had slipped back into his badge. And now, Monica Hayes knew her nightmare wasn't over. It had just begun. Monica sat in the infirmary window, watching the shoreline drift further away as the Arlington cut deeper into the sea. For the first time, she allowed herself to whisper the impossible. "I survived." But in the reflection of the glass, she didn't see safety. She saw the fire in Callahan's eyes. And somewhere inland, he was already pulling strings, spinning lies, making sure when she spoke, he'd be ready to silence her again. Not even the Navy could protect her forever, because the war for truth had only just begun. The storm outside raged like a beast, still hungry for blood. Waves slammed against the coast, and the horizon burned with the orange glow of the setting sun, as if the world itself had been lit on fire to witness the end of this story. Monica sat in the dimly lit naval infirmary, her wrists wrapped in fresh bandages, the salt still crusted on her skin. Every breath hurt, her chest aching from the cold she'd swallowed during her time in the water. But the fire in her eyes had not dimmed. If anything, it was brighter, burning with fury, with defiance, with the need for justice. Captain Ross stepped into the room, his boots heavy on the steel floor. He carried himself like a man used to hard truths. But tonight, his expression carried a different weight. "They found Callahan's ship," Ross said. His voice was low, grave. "It's not sunk. He escaped with at least a dozen of his men. And Monica," he paused, his eyes locking on hers, "he took the black case with him." Monica's heart slammed like a hammer. The case, the one she had glimpsed just before Callahan shoved her into the sea. She hadn't known what was inside, but the way he had guarded it told her everything. "What's in it?" she demanded. Ross's silence said more than words could. Finally, he sighed. "Evidence. Hard drives. Documents. Proof of payments, orders, and a list of people involved in his operations. If that case sees daylight, half a dozen men in uniform, men in high offices, will go down with him. And that's why he'll never let it be found." Monica gripped the edge of her cot, so hard her knuckles went white. Rage, icy and hot all at once, surged through her veins. "Then we find him," she said. Ross gave a grim nod. "We're assembling a task force." "But Monica," he stepped closer, his tone heavier. "Callahan knows you lived. He won't stop. He's not just after covering his tracks anymore. He wants you silenced." 2 nights later, under the thick blanket of midnight, Monica stood on the deck of the naval vessel Ardent. The ocean stretched endless and black. The stars mirrored in its restless surface. Her body still bore the ache of her ordeal, but she refused to stay behind. Ross had argued with her. The doctors had begged her to rest. But Monica knew what was at stake. If Callahan wasn't stopped, others would end up like her. Bound, discarded, silenced at sea. The task force had tracked Callahan's ship, the Raven's Pride, heading toward an abandoned oil rig 30 miles off the coast. The rig was supposed to be decommissioned years ago, but intelligence suggested it had been repurposed into a fortress. As the Ardent cut to the waves, Monica's pulse quickened. She could almost hear Callahan's mocking laugh, the gravel in his voice when he whispered, "You don't belong in my waters." Not anymore, she thought. Tonight, she would make sure he never hurt anyone again. The oil rig loomed out of the mist like a black skeleton against the moonlight, rusted beams rising into the sky, platforms crisscrossing with a dim glow of generator-powered lights. Armed men patrolled the catwalks, their silhouettes shifting with rifles slung across their shoulders. The assault began silently. Navy SEALs, clad in black, slid into the water and scaled the rig supports like shadows. Suppressed gunfire cracked the night air, bodies hitting metal with hollow thuds. But Monica wasn't in the shadows. She was at the front, following Ross and his men into the belly of the beast. Every echo of her boots against steel reminded her of the chains that had once held her down. "Stay close," Ross ordered as they pressed deeper inside. Monica's eyes swept every corner. This was Callahan's den. Smug crates, weapons, satellite gear, and the reek of oil and salt. And then, a voice. It crackled over the loudspeakers. Deep mocking. Well, the girl who wouldn't drown. Her stomach turned. Callahan. His voice slid across the steel walls, followed by a low chuckle. "You should have stayed under, Monica, because now..." The pause was deliberate, the venom sharp. "Now you're going to watch me burn every last thing you care about." They reached the central chamber, a wide, circular space filled with cables, machinery, and a raised platform in the center. And there he was, Commander Callahan. He stood with the ease of a man who believed the ground itself bent to his will. Broad-shouldered, scarred, his uniform torn but still carrying the weight of authority. In his hand was the black case, and in his eyes was the same cruel calmness Monica remembered before the seas swallowed her. Ross leveled his rifle. "It's over, Callahan. Drop it." Callahan only smiled. "Over? No, Ross. This is only beginning." He kicked open the case, revealing its contents. Rows of hard drives, files, sealed envelopes. He held one up, waving it like bait. "This," he snarled, "is enough to bring down men you salute every day. Admirals, senators. And you think they'll let me go quietly? No, Ross. They'll bury this truth so deep you'll choke on the dirt." Monica stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "You're not burying anything. Not anymore." Callahan's gaze snapped to her. For the first time, his smile faltered. "You..." He almost growled the word. "I should have tied 2 chains around your neck." "You tried to drown me," Monica shot back, her voice trembling with fury but steady in conviction. "But all you did was teach me how to breathe under fire. And tonight, I'll breathe until you can't." The standoff crackled with electricity. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire tore through the chamber, deafening in the steel walls. Sparks rained as bullets pinged off machinery. Ross's men dove for cover, returning fire at Callahan's guards pouring in from every doorway. Monica ducked behind a crate, her heart slamming as it splintered above her. She grabbed a fallen pistol, her hand shaking, then steadying as she remembered every ounce of pain, every second on that buoy. She would not freeze. Not now. She rose, aimed, and fired. One guard fell. Another staggered. The recoil jolted her arms, but her aim sharpened with every shot. Ross fought beside her, barking orders, his rifle blazing. But Callahan moved like a predator, weaving through the chaos, case still in hand, heading toward an escape hatch on the far side. "Monica!" Ross shouted. "He's running!" She didn't think. She just moved. She tore after Callahan through the maze of corridors, the clang of boots echoing like war drums. The rig shook under the weight of the battle behind them. Callahan pushed through doors, slammed levers, his fury fueling him. Monica chased, her breath burning, her vision tunneling. She would not let him vanish again. They burst onto the top deck, the ocean wind howling, rain beginning to lash sideways. Callahan turned, gun raised. The shot rang out, sharp, merciless. Monica dropped, the bullet grazing past her ear. She rolled, fired back. The blast caught Callahan in the shoulder, spinning him with a roar of pain. The case slid across the slick steel deck, skidding dangerously close to the edge. Both of them lunged. Rain hammered down, the storm roaring around them as Monica and Callahan crashed together. His strength was monstrous, his grip crushing as he tried to hurl her toward the railing. But Monica fought with something deeper, every ounce of fear, of rage, of survival. She drove her elbow into his ribs, twisted free, and slammed her knee into his chest. The case slid closer to the edge, teetering above the ocean. Callahan saw it too. With a snarl, he shoved Monica back and dove for it, but she was faster. She grabbed the case, clutching it tight. Callahan's hands wrapped around hers, pulling, wrenching, their faces inches apart. His breath was hot and bitter against her skin. "You think anyone will believe you?" he hissed. "Without me, you're nothing. Just another drowned girl." Monica's eyes blazed. "Then let's make sure you're the one who drowns." She twisted, using his own weight against him. Callahan stumbled forward, his boots slipping on the rain-slick steel. His roar echoed into the night as Monica shoved with every ounce of her being. He toppled over the railing. For a heartbeat, his hand clawed the air. Then he was gone, swallowed by the raging sea. The storm calmed by dawn. The rig was secured, Callahan's men either captured or killed, and the black case safely in Ross's hands. Monica sat on the deck of the Ardent once more, wrapped in a blanket, the rising sun casting gold over the horizon. Her body trembled from exhaustion, but her spirit was unbreakable. Ross stood beside her, the case at his side. "You did it," he said quietly. "No," Monica whispered, her voice soft but steady. "We did it. And now the world will finally see what he tried to hide." The waves rolled gently against the hull, no longer threatening, no longer cruel. For the first time since her nightmare began, Monica felt the sea breathe with her, alive, free, endless. She had been bound, abandoned, silenced, but she had risen. And now, with the truth in hand, she would never be drowned again.